starring Elizabeth Banks and Steve Credit. I don't know. James Harvey Dodd sounds like a serial killer who only kills presidents.
We're going to look inside a commercial bank and learn how banks serve us.
It ain't pretty.
We'll find out how Nancy Wallace is helping herself and helping the bank to fulfill its purposes. By looking in on Frank Hamilton, we'll learn the meaning of credit.
And despair.
Behind the scenes, in the bookkeeping department, we'll be concerned with the bank's records of various depositors' accounts.
Hey, that's private.
And with the bank's own balance sheet.
The official one, anyway.
Let's look at the balance sheet this way. When the bank started, its assets were only the cash contributed by the stockholders who organized the bank. This was balanced, on the ownership side, by the capital stock issued to the stockholders. Some of the cash assets were converted into a bank building and furnishings and special equipment.
Like laser grids.
The bank was then ready to receive deposits. Here, Nancy Wallace is depositing $5 in her savings account.
She's set for life.
She probably thinks of this only as a means of helping herself, building up a reserve fund to meet future needs and emergencies.
How
By
selfish.
putting her money in a safe place, where each deposit is insured up to a maximum of $10,000.
Give or take 5.
Even so, she's helping her bank to serve her community. For she and hundreds of other depositors help to build up the amount of cash which the bank has available to conduct its business. Deposits appear on the other side of the balance as a liability, because the bank must stand ready to return an equal amount of money on demand.
So there's just a big money scale in the lobby?
Deposits in savings accounts are called time deposits because the depositors intend to leave the money in the bank for some time.
I get it.
But most of the deposits are
Hi.
demand deposits, upon which the depositor can write checks when he makes payments to others.
Next.
Such deposits are made in commercial or personal accounts, often called checking accounts. Frank Hamilton is depositing some money, and also a check, his paycheck.
Party at Frank's.
On the deposit slip, the amount of the money and the check are added together, just as though it were all money. And yet, a check is not money.
What?
It is an instrument for the transfer of credit, which is a substitute for money.
Oh, like
What does
Quatloos.
that mean? Well, how would you like to have to get up every morning in time to pay the milkman?
Oh, yes,
Does
please.
this bother? The dairy sells its products on credit, and at the end of the month sends a bill for the price of the milk delivered during the month.
Plus convenience fees and cow tax.
This is called personal credit, or consumer credit.
Or capitalist
But
slavery.
now, Mr. Hamilton still doesn't want to go to the dairy office to pay his bill,
Smells like cheese over there.
so he will mail them a check for the amount of money he owes them. And this is where the bank comes back into the picture.
Frank begins the months-long process of applying for a dairy loan.
On his job, Mr. Hamilton himself is paid not in money, but by check.
And Cabela's gift
He
cards.
deposits his paychecks in the bank. He receives no money for his work.
Money's for Quakers.
But in the bookkeeping department of the bank, the amount of the deposit is credited to Mr. Hamilton's account. In other words, it is added to the amount of his credit in the
Must
bank.
be nice. It must be nice to have credit in your bank.
Meanwhile, the amount of the check is deducted from the amount of credit available to Mr. Hamilton's employer.
Here's where the bank lady's fingers get a little sticky.
Thus, the check has served as an instrument for the transfer of credit from the Central Manufacturing Company to Mr. Hamilton.
Just you
In
wait.
addition to personal checks, there are several other types. A certified check is a personal check that is guaranteed by the bank on which it is drawn.
So it's useless.
A cashier's check is one drawn by a bank on its own funds in the bank.
Oh, a Mobius check.
A bank draft is a check drawn by a bank on funds it has on deposit in another bank.
Oh, a they owe you.
By means of these various credit instruments, a bank deals much more in credit than it does in money.
And that's why civilization is
Now,
doomed.
A bank not only assists in the transfer of credit, but it also creates credit.
Where credit is due.
So, besides providing a safe place for depositing money and making it easy for people to transfer credit from one to another, a bank serves a community by making additional credit available for many purposes.
Like my gambling debt?
For a family to build a new home, for a merchant to enlarge and remodel his store, for a farmer to purchase new equipment, for a manufacturer to meet his payroll during slack selling periods,
During a pandemic when
for
people
a
are
family to
vulnerable.
meet the cost of an expensive illness,
Oh, jeez.
and for many other good reasons why people are always needing more money, more credit than they have immediately available.
These are chickens which shall never come home to roost.
Since most of these transactions involve the transfer of credit rather than cash, they increase the bank's deposits much more than they decrease its cash.
That's the shell game.
Consequently, the bank needs to keep comparatively little cash on hand. By proper timing, new loans are made at about the same rate that old ones are repaid.
Or not, whatever.
Still, for all the work this credit has done, it has had little effect on the bank's cash. What then does the bank do with the rest of the cash the depositors have left with it?
Is it crimes? I'm guessing crimes.
Some of it is put to work for the federal government, and in exchange for it, the bank holds bonds and other government obligations.
Sounds ominous.
Some of it is put to work for the community in which the bank is located, in exchange for municipal bonds and securities.
Bonds. Municipal bonds.
Much of it goes to build up the industrial might of the nation, in exchange for corporate securities.
Oh, boy.
And finally, some of the cash goes into Federal Reserve bank stock.
Government fun
Our
bucks.
Federal Reserve System serves as a banker's bank, facilitating the transfer of credit among member banks throughout the nation in the same way that each bank helps its customers to transfer credit.
Who banks the bankers?
So, when Nancy Wallace deposited $5 in the bank, she was not only helping herself, she was helping the bank to create credit used in carrying on the business of her community and her country and her world. The credit thus created
Hey,
is
she didn't
far
wave that
greater
time.
in amount than all the money in the world.
Too big to fail,
And
right?
This credit is the cornerstone of our world structure of commerce and industry, working for us in the mass production of goods,
Oh, good.
in the transportation of goods throughout the world, in the building of our cities and towns and homes,
Vape shops.
in the giant works of our federal government, in the conveniences of daily living, and in the protection of our health and our lives.
If your credit's good.
All this is done with credit. Credit created by the bank out of the deposits made by all of us.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this whole credit thing. I don't know, guys. Thank you so much for watching Fun with Shorts. This series is supported by Patreon and patrons like these wonderful people right here. They get early access to new episodes and exclusive episodes every month. Also, check out the updated funwithshorts.com for DVDs and merch and all the good stuff. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next time.